But there's been times when I was thinking about, I'm going to be out of the office for this or that meeting or going on vacation or something like that. And I think, it's so much work to be gone. You have to have these things done ahead of time before you leave. And you have to have, what you normally do here, you got to get someone else to do that. What you normally do over there, you got someone else to cover that. And sometimes it seems like an awful lot of work to go on vacation or something. And if we follow that thinking, and there's another saying, I don't know if you'll relate to this either, but I've been known to think or say on occasion, well, if you want something done right, you gotta do it yourself. We get fixated on what we have to do and how much we have to do. And if we get in that mindset, it tends to lead us down this road of, if I'm not here, everything's going to fall apart. If I don't do it, it's not going to get done. And, there are some cases we have evidence to support that. If we don't show up here, something might not get done, or it might not get done the way we would have done it, or when we would have normally done that. But those of us who've been around a while, we also know that things actually do go on without us. I learned that, I've had to learn it several times, but one especially dramatic example was my back just went out several years back, and I woke up one morning on a Saturday morning, and I couldn't move without incredible pain. I was just incapacitated. And I was like instantly panicked. How am I going to do all of the things that I need to get done? Luckily, I had someone training with me that I could call and here's your 24-hour notice, or slightly less, that you're up tomorrow morning for preaching. And as much as I could, got those things taken care of. And other things that only I could do obviously didn't get done. They just couldn't. I was not able to do them. And it was really the first time in my life that I have felt totally incapacitated. Totally helpless. I couldn't stand up by myself. I couldn't move by myself. I couldn't get dressed by myself. I certainly couldn't drive myself anywhere. And the world continued. Like, they had church without me. And then some church people showed up with food. And things went on. And it was sort of a humbling experience. Like, my world had ground to a halt, but everyone else's had not. And that's a good thing. But it can sometimes be humbling when we realize we are not at the center of the universe, when things do not revolve around me. Because whether we think it that way or say it that way or not, that's the assumption we're making when we are so focused on our tasks and getting things done and so busy with what has to get done and thinking if I don't do it, it's not going to get done or it's not going to get done right. We may not say it or realize it, but that is what we're thinking. We're defaulting to the human assumption that the world revolves around us. And part of the good news of the gospel is that the world does not revolve around me, or you, or any one of us. It's good news because it means it's not all up to us. It's not all on our shoulders. That the world does function independently of us. Yes, there would be things missing if we were not here or didn't use our gifts, but it's fundamentally not all about us. We are not the center of the universe. Jesus had a very gentle way of saying this. In the Gospel according to Luke chapter 10, we learn that while Jesus and his disciples were traveling, Jesus entered a village where a woman named Martha welcomed him as a guest. Now, we know from other stories that this is the town of Bethany, and that Martha was a very good friend of Jesus's. He'd been there many times. This was, in fact, a place he went to hang out, to regroup, to relax frequently. And that Martha had a sister named Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his message. By contrast, Martha was preoccupied with getting everything ready for their meal. So Martha came to him and said, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to prepare the table all by myself? Tell her to help me." The Lord answered, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. One thing, only one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the better part. It won't be taken away from her." Let us hear what the Spirit is speaking to God's people. There's some layers of things going on here, and there are some easy misrepresentations to make in this passage. And frankly, there are many lessons we can learn from it and ways we can apply it to our lives, as with most of Scripture. It speaks to us in different ways at different times. But I think there's something important to hone in on here. And as we follow this series by Junius Dotson, Soul Reset, he chooses this scripture as an important message that he learned. That the world did not revolve around him. When he got sick, things kept moving. And it was a little humbling, but also reassuring for him. One thing that I want to be sure, to be clear, that Jesus is not saying is, don't ever worry about doing important stuff or stuff in the future, thinking ahead. That's something that I've heard a take on, and that's taken it a little bit different direction than what Jesus was doing, and I think that's not so helpful. Because sometimes it is misunderstood or misrepresented what all was going on here. What was happening is that the sisters, Mary and Martha, had company. At least Jesus, maybe some more of the disciples were with them. We don't know. But they had company, and what do you do when you have company? You make them comfortable. You try to get them something to eat and drink. That's important. And if Martha had not been doing important work, I'm sure several hours later, when everyone realized their tummies were rumbling, that would have become more important, and they would have said, why weren't you cooking dinner or thinking about what we would eat tonight? She was doing good work. She was doing legitimate work. The work that she was doing was usually women's work, which is why she was irritated that her sister was not helping her, but instead sitting probably with the other male disciples and talking about important things. Because typically that's just what men did. So Martha has defaulted to her cultural assumptions, her worldview, and is defaulting to the, if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. It is not, however, about the specific work that she's doing. Jesus isn't saying, never cook, never clean, never worry about that stuff. Obviously, somebody does. Somebody has to do that work. What he's saying, for one, is surprising in that he is affirming Mary's choice of sitting and talking with the guys, which is unusual for that culture and place and time. He's saying it's totally okay for her to be here with us. She doesn't have to come help you, which is really cool. I love Jesus for doing things like that, for challenging, our assumptions. But that's not the main point of what's happening here. The main point of what's happening here isn't the specifics of what Martha's doing or what Mary's doing. What Jesus gently corrects Martha about is that she is preoccupied, that she is worried and distracted by many things. Not that she's doing this one thing. What he's talking about is the fact that she's doing the busy thing. She's doing the, if I don't get it done, it's not going to get done, and I always have to worry about this stuff, and now this adds to my to-do list, and then what's going to happen with that or the other thing, and who's going to do? That's where her mind is. She's in the, it's all about me. It's all on my shoulders. It's up to me to get it done. That's what headspace she's in. What Jesus is telling her is, Mary is here now. She is attending to the present. Jesus has given several hints, several indications up to this point in the gospel that he won't be around forever. It's not imminent now, but he knows they're not going to have him to sit around and talk with and ask questions. He doesn't have years and years and years to teach them. And so he knows it is important to be in the present, to make the most of the time that we have. And that's true for all of us, not just because of our inevitable mortality. I mean, that is also a fact. We don't have forever, and most of us don't know how long we have. But what he's saying here that I think is important for us is important for me to be reminded of is what's important is to attend to the presence of God, to be where we are fully. We've all had experiences where we are visiting with someone, we're in a conversation, and we maybe have glanced off at something, and we realize we've been talking a little while, and the person that we're talking with is still physically present, but they're not really there. You know, they've phased out, they're not listening, they've been checking their phone, they've been, caught up in a daydream, a screen has caught their attention, and they are no longer present to the conversation. They're no longer there with you, even if they are still physically there. And I think if we're being honest, we have all probably been guilty of the same thing. We're supposed to be listening, but instead we're thinking about what we're going to say next. We're supposed to be present and attending and giving our time and attention to the person we're with, and instead we are going, and we're not in smiling, and because we're working on another problem, we're somewhere else in our brain, and all of a sudden they go, no, that was not the right answer. And you realized you had gone, when you should have gone, nope. It happens. What Jesus is saying is, yeah, there are lots of things that need to be done. Sure, there's tons of work to do. Yes, we each have stuff that we need to do. And our work is important. He is in no way saying to Martha, you are doing something frivolous and trivial. Your work, women's work, is devalued. He's not saying that. He's saying, be mindful. Don't just keep doing because you're on autopilot and you're in busy mode. Your busyness is not what makes you important. I used to think that. In fact, being a pastor would pretty easily lead you to think that. And you should hear a whole bunch of us talk in a room at one time. It's a big comparing how busy we are. And I have made the mistake before of defaulting to the thinking that the busier I am, the more important I am. That if I have a big to-do list, it means I am really valuable and important. My work is important. And Jesus is saying, busyness is not what makes you important. You are already important because God made you. You are already loved and unique and one of a kind because God does a great job. You are not worth only what you can accomplish. You need to be in the present. My counselor told me one time, we are human beings, not human doings. We are who we are because we exist. Because God has given us life. We are human beings. We are not doings. Jesus invites us here, and Dotson learned this and is reminding his readers, as I remind you and myself, that there's only one most important thing. We can't have a whole bunch of most importance. There's only one top of the list, and it's Jesus. Period. That being in the present will help us discern when it is time to be busy and when it is time to reflect and rest. Being in the present, being in the presence of God is the most important. From there, God can nudge us to action, to further thought and reflection, to doing this or answering that. But it's because we are attending to the present that we are able to discern when it is to do and when it is to not do. The importance, the key, the linchpin for the whole thing is being in the present and recognizing that God is here now. Not just when we plan to pray later or we'll get around to it, but God exists now. We are in God's presence in this very moment. The issue is, are we aware of that? Are we attending to that? Or are we so busy doing that we're not even attending to God's presence? Attending to the present. Realizing that it is not all about us. That the moment is enough is freeing. Helps us to let go of a whole bunch of shoulds and ought tos and not enoughs. All of those things will fade away when we attend to the present moment in which God is speaking to us. I've been inviting you to go on a journey and try out new spiritual practices, different one each week, and this week's is fasting. Don't throw it away on your way out. I know that is a scary word, and we are going to go, but I can't. But I encourage you to read this, to be open to thinking differently about fasting. This paper does not say, don't eat for the rest of the week. I promise you it does not say that. There are a variety of ways of fasting. And fasting is one of the things that brings us into better attention of the present. It removes some distractions, allows us to focus, and helps us be more present to ourselves. So there's a variety of exercises on here, from something like actually going for a period of time without eating, which you can do in a number of ways, and it spells that out here, to fasting from something besides food, like perhaps social media or talking. Some of these things require thinking or planning out ahead of time, warning the people that you normally interact with that you are not just ignoring them. Which is why I wanted to point out, they're spelled out day one to, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and that kind of a thing. If that day isn't going to work for that activity, feel free to switch them around. Use this. This is a tool. This is not an oppression, okay? This is an invitation. And so I'd like you to think of it as some recommendations, suggestions, how we can do these things together, but use it to your benefit. That doesn't mean I'm not going to benefit from this, or I know someone else will benefit from it, and I will give it away to them. Sometimes we don't know what's good for us until we've actually tried it. If you're a parent, you've probably actually said that before. Let's believe it, maybe, give it a shot, and see if there are some new tools that can help us in our relationship with God. If your relationship with God is on your mind this morning and you feel led to take a new direction or to take a step forward in your journey, maybe that is to claim the love of God and profess your faith in Christ. Or maybe it's to reaffirm your faith, that you feel you need to say this out loud just to make it a little bit more real again. Or maybe you're not sure what the next step is, but you want to take one. You're ready. Then please come and see me. I would love to visit with you about that, help you discern whatever is next in your journey of faith or some next faithful steps that we could try. And you are welcome to come and visit with me. If you'd like to make a decision this morning, you can come and tell me that as we stand and sing together, or you can get in touch with me throughout the week and let me know. We'll set up a time when we can visit and discuss where you are in your journey. I hope that you will take advantage of the many invitations that are all around us to attend to God's presence. There's more than you think when you slow down and open your eyes. Now, as you feel so led and so comfortable, please join me in standing, and we will sing a closing hymn. This is perfect. And sometimes we sing the words, and the first time we weren't paying attention. I just want to invite you to hear them and sing them again. What a prayer for our week. Find the quiet center, be at peace, and simply be. Be free to be who you are. You will find it in God's presence. Go in peace.